Okay, just to quickly refresh your brain here, we are done the quadratic sections. So quadratic, graphing, you had some important things. You basically needed to know the vertex. You're not, you can just watch. So what did we do about the vertex when it looked like that? Negative b over 2a, plug in. What did we do when it looked like this? HK, and what's important? Opposite. Okay, those are your two vertex strategies. Okay, then to graph, we needed the over-up chart, right? That's all you need to ever graph, the vertex and the slope. That's the big ideas with graphing. Make sure you all know all of your basics: domain, range, y-intercept. Axis of symmetry always starts with x equals. Okay? That was the basics of the graphing part. And we did a bunch of the x-intercepts. So solve. So what's the big ideas here? The branch strategy, right? What do I always say on the one side? If it has one variable, then you should do what? Isolate. If it has two variables, equals 0 before you even venture into a strategy. And then you can do some factoring if you can. Then you go through that process. Do I recognize which style is it? And you have your 4 styles. Okay, and if it doesn't factor, you have the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula also has some big ideas. What if that square root, when you're calculating it, what if that square root is positive?
Positive or negative?
What if it is positive? What do you know already? You have 2 solutions. What if the square root portion was negative? You have no solutions. And what if the square root portion was 0? That's not to actually solve, but it's just what kind of answer am I going to get? What am I going to get for my answer? Okay. So please separate those ideas in your head. I always get people trying to factor to get some vertex stuff. That's not a technique for vertex. It's a different idea. Okay, right? They're different ideas. So vertex, x-intercept, different concepts. So separate them when you're thinking about quadratics. Okay, there was 2 big ideas. Okay, so trig. Okay, the first thing I need you to do when you get into a trig question is degree mode. Okay, if you are wanting to double check, sine of 30 should be a half. Okay, sine of 30 should be a half.
Oh, I have easy trig now.
Okay, I am not going to be there on your exam days, so usually I remind people when the exam happens. I think I wrote it on the front page. Just check to see if it says degrees. Okay, you look up at the top of a building. And then you walk back and you look up again.
Bless you. Bless you. Don't kill me.
Okay, so that's the kind of idea. You're standing on the sidewalk, you look up, you walk back, and you look up again. So the one time you were looking up at 33, and the other time you looked up and it was 29 degrees. Do you know how angles work when you're looking up? What would happen to your neck the closer you get to something? Your neck goes up, so that angle would get steeper. So this would be a 29-degree angle of elevation, and that would be a 33. Okay, so that's the given. You can also make one assumption, that the building is hopefully at a 90 degree with the ground. Okay, so strategy on this question was get me any angle you possibly can using some rules that you would know.
I got all the angles.
Got them all already?
Yeah. You can do 180 subtract 32.
You can do a supplementary property right there. So 147 degrees. And then the top gives me 4 left over.
How are you going to hoverboard them? 180 just subtract 32. Oh, yeah.
Those two together. Okay, I actually don't need the last one. If you found it, that's fine. If you want, you can put a 57 there, but I actually don't need it. Okay, trig. We're going to go through 3 ideas. Do you have pairs, SAS, or triple S? Those are the 3 bigs. You have a pair? Okay, so side angle pair means I use which formula? So here's the formulas. So this is sine law, and these ones are cosine law.
It's the top one.
Sine law is pairs. Okay? So I'm going to go 12 over sine 4. And which side should I find? I can either go across 29 or across 147.
29.
29 would get me this. Okay, I'm going to call it y when I'm writing this. So y over sine 29. Okay, to solve sine law, you always times across, divide by the leftover. Remember that rule? Times, divide. And then if we needed to get an angle, we would inverse at the very end, but this is not an angle, it's just a side. So on your exam, please 2 decimal places everywhere except angles. I'll allow 1 decimal on those ones. Angles 1. Okay, does that help me get the building now?
2. Unless you are doing
I can do a pair. And here's the question, or here's a mistake that I see. What should I pair the building with, the 29 or the 33? The 33. Sometimes I get somebody who pairs it with the 29, and why would that be a mistake? They're not inside the same triangle. They're two different triangles. Okay. And then you get to do a times divide again. Okay, so sine law, pairs. You are on the westerly shore of a body of water.
That's a nice body of water.
Thank you. And there's you
That's me?
over there. Some arms. Okay. Now you are 600 meters from the north shore. So from the north shore, you are 600. From the south, you're 450. And then you know that from where you are, the angle between the north and you and the south is 78. So what's the distance between the north and south? So we recognized out of the three pairs, SAS or triple S, that you have a SAS, a side with an angle in between the side. So on my formula sheet, that would be this middle one. Okay, everybody knows these formulas are on a formula sheet that you get for your exam, right? Don't memorize them, they're on a formula sheet. The formula sheet that I gave you on the very first day of class. Okay, this one is type all at once and then square root it. And if you forget to square root it, you should recognize that number is massive compared to your other numbers, right? So in word problems, you should throw on your units if it's meters or feet or whatever, kilometers. Did you guys get something different than me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to retype. I wonder if I accidentally did a 400 instead of a 450. Retyping. Oh yeah, I got something different. I think, whoops. Sorry about that. That?
Did you go for 9-9 or 1-0?
I thought mine went to just 9-9.
Yeah. So would you round to 1-0 or would you just leave it 9-9?
9-9. It's 2 decimals. Okay, everyone was good with that after I botched the answer there? There's a really common mistake on people typing in sine by accident. Sometimes that happens, so make sure you just focus in on pushing that button. Maybe that's what I did too. Okay. As soon as you look at a triangle, pairs, SAS, triple S. You don't have a SAS. You have a pair. So it's going to be sine law. Okay, now there's a problem because I can't find X because it doesn't have its pair, right? So does it make sense that I will find that angle first? And then what do you think I can do after I would know that angle?
Then you can subtract it from 180.
I can do a 180 minus to get that. And then you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to do another sine law and get this.
To do that, even if you're just solving for X.
To get the side over here. Solve for,
You're just solving for X.
oh, you're just solving for X. Well, on your exam, you'll probably have one of those questions, so we may as well do it. We're solving for little x, and this is big X. Okay, everybody knows the lowercase letters, sides, uppercase, or angles? Okay, so we got 21 is across sine 81. And 20 is across sine of, we got to give it a different letter. Y? Okay, what are we doing to type this one?
20 times 81.
Times,
Second function.
divide, inverse. You got to do those three things. Times across, divide left over. Inverses are always the rule to get an angle. $70.2. Okay, I am now going to get this by 180 minus. So I still need 28.8 degrees in that triangle yet. Okay, so now I'm going to do a pair setup again. And I could use this pair with this, but I'm going to stick to the given info. So I'm still going to use 21 sine 81. Are you stating the Pythagorean theorem? Right angle. Right.
I'll give it a shot. I'll just go for it.
There's nowhere probably. You could have done right triangle stuff in that triangle, but
So nowhere in that room A squared, B squared. No, okay.
no.
You're taking that myself.
Yeah. Don't try it.
We're not doing that part at all.
What's that? She's trying to do the Pythagorean theorem. That it only. No, the Pythagorean theorem only works in right triangles.
And it's not on the exam in general.
A Pythagorean theorem question? No.
It is. Yeah, but it was on the, it was in the
In grade 10.
It was in the trig notes.
Yeah.
That was reviewed from grade
From grade 10, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, how does that look? Is that a side? Did you know that that side had to be the smallest side? Did you already know that? Across from the smallest angle. Better be smaller than the other sides. Oh, speaking of smallest, Okay, which angle is the smallest? The A, the B, or the C? Angle B would be the smallest because it's across the smallest side. So that's just a general rule you should know. Looking at it, do you know your strategy? Pair, SAS, triple S. Triple S. So triple S is the bottom because we're trying to find an angle. We're going to use cosine law. So I'm going to go cos of angle B equals, and I'm going to put a fraction line. Now, you know what I do? I jump to the subtraction spot. Which side do I have to subtract?
6.
6 squared. And then the 7 and 8, just fill in. So can you fill in the 7 squared, 8 squared, 2 times 7 and 8? So this is what I just write it first. So then I remember opposites. Okay, so that's one important thing on this. Next is your calculator steps are important. If you try to type this in all at once, it's going to go wrong. You need to write the top divided by the bottom in brackets like that. The top stuff divided by the bottom stuff. And then you're going to need to cos inverse because it's an angle. And that was that unit. That was the first unit we did in September. So pairs, SAS, triple S. Oh, ambiguous. What the heck? I didn't put one on there. We better do one of those.
We just moved to number 5.
It's on your exam. We probably should do it. Why didn't I put one on there? Uh-oh. Why is there not one on here?
There's one in the first one.
Okay, we already wrote something extra on your last page, didn't we? Okay, I definitely put one on your exam, so we need to do one. I don't know if you can find some room somewhere. The back part of your answer key, you have room. On your answer key, on your... Okay, so the ambiguous triangle. Somewhere on a paper. Yep, perfect spot. Okay, there is for sure one of these on your test, on your exam, so make sure we know what we're doing. Angle A is 28 degrees. Which side would I put on right here? The 9 or the 10? 10. The 10. Because side A should be across from it. Okay, so side 9 is across from it. Now, do you remember what happened? If 9 is that big, it would hit here or here. Remember that case? So the 9 could have swiveled there or there. Do you notice how one triangle I drew is an obtuse angle? And one triangle I drew is an acute triangle. So somebody who would draw me a picture like this would be wrong. Because those are both less than 90, which is not possible. Okay. So I have what I call my yellow triangle is 10, 9, and I will have to figure out what the third side of that one is, right? 10, 9, and what? And in my pink triangle, 10, 9, and what? That's my goal, to figure out the third side of the 10, 9, and something. So the question would be titled, find both sides C. Both possible values for side C. Okay, so here we go. 9 over sine 28 equals 10 over sine B. Those are the pairs. It's a sine pair. Times, divide, inverse are your steps. So your calculator should show you 31.4 degrees. Are we matching? Or there could have been a different option, but your calculator didn't show you it. How do I know what the other option is? 180 minus. The other angle could have been its supplementary option. So I need to locate that angle across the 10. So I have two options. Where would you put across the 10? What would you put there? Across the 10, what would you put there? 148.6 is in my yellow because it's the obtuse across 10. 31.4 is the acute across 10. Okay, so the next step would be finishing the angle in my yellow triangle, finishing the angle in my pink triangle. Okay, so then I got a 3.4 degree in the yellow, and I got a 120.6. Those are good? Okay, and then you're going to have to set up sine law again. So 9 over sine 28, not 38, 28, equals C1 over sine 3.4 times divide. Same maneuver over the 120.6.
How did you get the 120?
I used the 28 and the 31.4. Do you see them in my other corners of the pink?
Well, the first one should also be.
Okay, so you're looking for the side C across 3.4 and the side C across the 120.6. Do you remember if the opposite side, pretend it was longer than 10, what was the case?
Then it would have only one solution.
Only one triangle possible. And what if when we found that this was shorter, but then we tried this and there was an error?
There would no problem.
There would be no triangles. Okay, but I do have the question on there about can you find both possible sides and draw me the situation. Okay, so make sure you do the sketch on that one. Okay. More trig stuff. Okay, I told you to go into grade 12, you need to have mastered quadratics, factoring, and the formula. The other topic that you need to have mastered going in is this. So this was astica, reference angles. Do you remember all that stuff? Okay, so I was given that sine is negative. So please have this memorized. Astica, know the boxes. It starts with A, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the numbers, right? So where is sine negative? Bottoms. And which two is tan positive? 1 and 3. So my conclusion is that I should end up in quadrant 3. Okay, so my angle is somewhere in quadrant 3. And I connect a triangle to it. Should I connect the triangle to the x-axis or the y-axis? Okay, you have these formulas on your formula sheet. Sine theta equals y over r should be on your formula sheet. Or, if we're talking about an angle, do you know what sine is? SOHCAHTOA. Opposite over hypotenuse, or y over r. Carly, you actually do get to use it on your exam. Now you get to use the Pythagorean theorem. Should you add or subtract with it?
Subtract.
Subtract, because you have the hypotenuse and you're finding a smaller side.
Yeah.
Does the negative 13 come into play? No. When you're doing that, it's an absolute value because it's a distance. Remember we talked about absolute value? It's a distance of 13. So just do the distance of 85 squared minus the distance of 13 squared. Does that square root nicely? Yes. Okay. Do you remember me preaching in this unit? Don't put the negatives into your math. So we did the Pythagorean theorem without the negative 13. Put the negatives into your location. So this is a graph. So what kind of x value do you have when you're on that quadrant? Negative. Okay? So don't do the negatives in the math. Think about the negatives with location. So now you can look at your formula sheet. The cos theta would be the x over the r. If you are SOHCAHTOA, what's the adjacent over hypotenuse? Okay. And then the tan theta, on your formula sheet, if you looked, it would say it's a y number over an x number. If you're the SOHCAHTOA, it'd be the opposite over the adjacent. But I would rewrite that number to be a positive. Okay, number 6. So we're going to solve for this trig equation. Before we go into trig, we got to do algebra. So algebra is the branch. Where are we on the branch?
Do not like fully solve. It always equals 0. So left factor.
It's a factor on the branch. We've hit a factoring. We have 2 variables. We have a tan squared and a tan, and it looks like a complex trinomial. So we're going to FLA. So -4 is my FLA number. So 1, 4 or 2, 2. And I have to use one positive and one negative value to get there, to get to a 3. The -4 came from the 2 in the front and the -2 at the last. When you do a complex trinomial, you do the FLA, the front and the last. First and last, -4, and then I need to make a 3 out of them. Okay, now I'm going to make a list on what did I do to get the F, what did I do to get the L, so there was only one way to multiply to the F. I would have needed a 1 tan x and a 2 tan x. And then to make the L, I can only do a 1 times the 2. That was it. But make sure you're partnering what with what to make a 1. Okay, so I always write my first. And then I make 2 rainbows. Okay, the foil pieces all need to connect.
But 2 in the first one and 1 in the second one.
So on the rainbow, the tan has to be with a 1, and it's a -1. The 2 tan I put with a box with a 2 as a plus. So tan x equals -2, and tan x equals
-2 and +1? Just 2 and 1? What?
+1 over 2. Okay. You may think that you did a lot of work and you're done. You have completed about 20% of the question, so don't stop. This was algebra. You haven't even started anything trig related. So I want to know what is the actual angle x. So step 1, we're going to do them both differently. Step 1, where would this angle be if its tan was negative? So astica. Astica.
It'd be 1 or 3. No. 2 or 4. Okay, why is it 2? Just
Astica. So tan is negative. So this is where tan is positive, and all means they're all positive. So therefore it's negative. Remember that? Okay. Now I'd like to get an angle value. How do you get angle values? You inverse. So I'm going to tan inverse. And what do I always preach? Don't put the negatives in the math. The negatives are in its location. Then we put the negatives into the quadrant. So tan inverse 2. Bless you.
63. Loud.
Okay, so what is this angle? What would I do? It's 63.4 degrees compared to what?
Nope.
What is this spot right here?
26.6. 180.
180, and we are bigger or smaller than? We're that much smaller than 180. And what do you think about this one in quadrant 4? 360, we're smaller than 360. Second tan of 2, of positive 2, not negative. Never do negatives in the math, put the negatives into location of the trig. Okay, so we actually have 2 more answers. Now, the next set, what angle would have a tan value of 1/2? So where would this angle be? Positive tan. Positive tan, so obviously these two are opposite of each other, negative tan, positive tan. So I need what I call a reference angle. So I'm going to tan inverse bracket 1 divided by 2. Brackets would be important on that one.
See, here's the 26.6 I was talking about.
Okay, so this angle would technically be 0 plus that much, I guess, right? Which is just 26.6. And then if you're in quadrant 3, you're bigger than 180. Okay? Sometimes, do you remember that we had no solutions if I had a tan value, or sorry, a cos or a sine value bigger than 1 or negative 1? Those were no solutions. Okay, 2 more questions. Okay, another trig equation. Before you hit trig mode, you got to do your algebra branch. Algebra becomes before the trig. So where am I on my algebra? 1 variable, isolate. So I need to move and divide, right? That's my isolation. So I'm going to minus 8. Divide by 5. Again, I get lots of people who stop there. You're going to get not very many points. Because that would be worth 1/2 of a point on this question. Okay. Done the algebra. Activate your trig mode. What's the first thing you do? Figure out astica location. Cos of the angle, wherever this angle is, the cos is negative. On the 2 left quadrants, because cos is the x, so it's left. Okay, now I'm going to, what's the second? So astica is first. Reference. I need my reference. And my type better be positive 4/5, bracket 4/5. I need all those things to think about. And you're going to have two answers. Make sure your answers make sense. Sometimes I get somebody who answers me 200 in this quadrant. Does that make sense to you, that 200 would be there? No. This angle has to be between what and what as a number? 90 and 180. Whatever it is between 90 and 180 somewhere, right? Okay. You are going to have one question on your exam with the unit circle. You do not have to make the unit circle. Please don't spend time studying the unit circle. You will be given it on your formula page. So on your exam, you will see a unit circle. Okay? And I also gave you those ratios that I talked about. Okay, so first of all, can you draw me where 150 degrees is? How do you draw angles again?
You draw lines. You just do. You just draw.
Where is 150?
It's in between. It's a little bit after. A little bit before 180.
So you have to draw your pivoting. So if I pivot here, this is 90, da 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 da, right there. That's how I would draw an angle. Okay, so I asked you for an exact value. So I'm going to think like this. The cos value of this angle is the x value divided by the r value. What do you know about the r value on, specifically, the unit circle? What is the r, the radius of the unit circle?
1.
R is 1. Are you okay if I scratch it off? On the unit circle. On the unit. It's a 1 unit circle. It's r, the radius of the whole circle is 1. Okay. So I scratched it off because math of divide by 1 doesn't mean anything, right? So what is the x value? So 150, what's the x value? Negative root 3 over 2. Answer. That's done. So there's one of these questions on your exam. Make sure if you answer me as a decimal because you used your calculator, 0 points. Okay? Okay, 225. First of all, draw me where that would be. 225. So that's where that is. And I asked you to figure out the sign. So I have all this attached to my formula sheet. The sign is y over r. Okay, and then this is specifically the unit circle. So r doesn't matter on the unit circle. Please don't just always assume that r doesn't matter. Because look at this question. R mattered on this one, right? R wasn't 1 on that one. Okay, so what is the y value? So I'm at 225. Negative root 2 over 2. Okay, and the last question is a 300-degree angle. So tan on the formula sheet says to do a y divided by an x. And I don't get to cheat on this one. There's no R. I can't scratch anything off. So I'm going to replace the y value with negative root 3 over 2 and the x value with 1/2. And this is no calculator. What would I do? How do you divide two fractions? You do get your calculator, but if you show me your work on your calculator, you're just getting a decimal answer, 0 points. Flip multiply hurts, so negative 3/2 times 2 over 1. Does anything special happen?
You just multiply. Oh, the opposite two cancel out.
2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Remember that rule? So my final answer is negative root 3, and I don't need to write over 1. But if it was the other way around, I would need to have 1 over that, right? If it had been the other way. Do you also just remember how to find references if I give you an angle and then you have to go to a reference? Do you remember that one? If I said find the reference for 260 degrees. What does a reference angle mean to you? There's 260, right? What does a reference angle actually mean? Between it and the nearest x-axis, not a y-axis. I tried to trick you because you're really close to the y-axis, but you always got to go to the x. So there is...
You don't want to do something that's not touching yet, right?
There's 80 degrees.
Do it the other way.
Like to this one?
Yeah.
This is more than 90 and this is less than 90, so I'm closer to this one. Okay, so that was just what is a reference angle?